Welcome into the Commander's Report. I'm your host, Jack Sperry, and today, we're 2 weeks away from the start of the NFL Draft, round one there in Green Bay, and today I'm going to be breaking down 5 players that I wouldn't be too thrilled with if the Washington Commanders end up taking them with their first overall selection in this year's draft class. Before we get into my crash out prospects in round one for the Washington Commanders today, let me know down there in the comments section, which players do you really hope Washington does not take in round one? Which player or players do you really hope the Commanders pass on at number 29 overall? Let me know what you guys are thinking down there in the comments section. And of course, throughout today's show, I'm going to be letting you guys know the 5 players that I really do not want the Commanders to take. So we will start here with one that I think is actually relatively popular among Commanders fans, and that is Shemar Stewart, the edge rusher out of Texas A&M. Now, Stewart is an athletic freak, and he does technically, theoretically, have high upside as a defensive end type of edge rusher. But the reason why I would crash out if it's Shemar Stewart is because he's a big-bodied, run-defending type of defensive end, and the Washington Commanders already have a bunch of those on their roster. In my opinion, the Commanders need more of a true designated pass rusher to really get after quarterbacks. And, with respect to Dorrance Armstrong, Dietrich Wise, Cleveland Ferrell, all these guys are more run-stuffing. They're more, they're more early down type of defensive ends that do a good job setting the edge, do a good job holding blocks and anchoring and doing all this different stuff. But they're not really pass rushing specialists. And, I think Shemar Stewart is somebody that fits more of that Dorrance Armstrong, Cleveland Ferrell type of mold, is kind of like a bigger guy that's good against the run as opposed to somebody that's going to get after quarterbacks. And like I talked about, guys, I think that the number one need after Dante Fowler Jr. left in free agency this year is you got to get your pass rushing specialist, because that's who Dante Fowler Jr. was for this team last year in this edge rusher rotation, and he had 10.5 sacks last year. I mean, that is significant production right there from the edge in terms of pass rushing, and, you're going to have to replace that with somebody in this year's draft class or via trade. We'll see what happens with Trey Hendrickson or maybe even TJ Watt in the days and weeks to come, but, you have to replace Dante Fowler Jr.'s production in terms of the pass rush, and I just don't see Shemar Stewart doing that, especially in year one of his NFL career. He only had 4.5 total sacks in college. All right, and we're projecting him to be the number one edge rusher in year one for the Washington Commanders in a year where they are trying to win a Super Bowl this year in Jaden Daniels' sophomore season. I mean, I just don't know if I see the projection there for him to make that big of a leap and be that much better of a pass rusher in the pros, especially in his first year. I think that right now when you look at what the Commanders need, they need a more true pass rushing type of talent. And even if they have to wait for day 2 to get a guy like that to be your designated pass rusher like Dante Fowler Jr. was for you last year, I think that would be a better pick than taking Shemar Stewart, which would kind of lead to some redundancy at the edge rusher position here in Washington. Then another guy that I think that, kind of goes into the same category as Shemar Stewart, and another name that might surprise some people here is Mykel Williams out of Georgia. Now, Williams, like Stewart, really good run defender. In fact, I actually think Williams is the better overall prospect because I think he's the better overall run defender. He was really a run defending specialist there with the Georgia Bulldogs, and he didn't really have a whole lot of opportunities to truly rush the passer. I think I'd be happier with Mykel Williams than I would with Shemar Stewart, because I think that Williams might have a little bit more upside to have that breakout season with the Washington Commanders next year if he ends up being the pick. But he would have a similar profile to Shemar Stewart, where they're both kind of run-defending type of bigger defensive ends and, with limited pass rushing production in college. I want somebody that I can trust to get after quarterbacks on day one of their NFL career, because that's what this defense desperately needs at this point. And I don't think Shemar Stewart or Mykel Williams, although they're good players and good prospects, I'm not sure if they necessarily fit the bill for what the Washington Commanders are looking for at the position, especially if they're going to be taking them in round one. Then we get to somebody here that I would really not be happy with, and that is UCLA's Oluwafemi Oladejo, the edge rusher out of UCLA. Now, I like the player, all right? I want to make that abundantly clear. I like Oladejo as a player, just not in round one. If they take him in round one, I will be pretty disappointed. And, it is a possibility here, guys, because the Commanders have shown a lot of interest in him. And during the draft process, they've met with him multiple times. Top 30 visit in Washington. And even, people that I respect in the NFL draft space, like Warren Sharp, has projected the Washington Commanders to take him at number 29 overall. Now, like I said, I like the player. I like Oladejo as a projected kind of developmental type of edge rusher. I think that he's got some really nice physical tools. Last year, he converted from off-ball linebacker to outside linebacker in terms of an edge and rushing the passer more consistently, and he's still pretty raw. He still needs to develop. I think he made some really good steps last year in the first year of him really rushing the passer. I think he's got some really great arm length. I think that he's got the potential to be a really good designated pass rusher as an outside linebacker type in the National Football League, and I think that he could help the Washington Commanders if he is a round 3 pick, but I think that round 1 is a bit rich for me, and I think that you can get other players to help your football team and still get Oladejo later in the draft if this is really the edge rusher that you want to go target. So when it comes to the guys in round 1 that I would be targeting if I were the Washington Commanders, if Mike Green or James Pierce Jr. end up falling to you, I think that that's the pick, all right? I think that, those two guys are top 3 edge rushers on film in this year's class. Mike Green, I have a top 10 grade on, but he has some sexual assault history kind of things, and he might fall because of that. James Pierce Jr. also has behavior and personality kind of issues, some red flags that have popped up. It's not impossible that one of those guys does fall in the NFL draft, and if you feel good enough about the person that you're getting, then maybe you take the leap and you take them at number 29. But the guy that I think is more likely to fall to the Washington Commanders at number 29, I actually think he will be available for them, is Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College, who had 14 and a half sacks for Boston College last year. And he's not necessarily the most physically gifted guy in the world. I don't know if he's ever going to be like a top 10 edge rusher on the planet, but I think he's going to be somebody that can be a designated pass rusher for you on day one, can win in a bunch of different ways, has a bunch of different pass rush moves at his disposal, and the production of 14 and a half sacks last year with Boston College speaks for itself. So as opposed to Mykel Williams and Shamar Stewart, who are more run-defending type of edge rushers, Ezeraku gets after quarterbacks, so that would be the pick that I would take if I were the Washington Commanders at number 29. So what say you guys? Would you be cool with taking Donovan Ezeraku out of Boston College at number 29? Give me a yes or a no down there in the comment section for today's pinned comment. In just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at Game Time. And while I'm talking about Game Time today, give me a yes or a no for today's pinned question. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Game Time. And recently, producer Joey and myself took in a Rangers game here at Globe Life Park in Arlington a couple weekends ago to watch Jacob deGrom pitch against the Boston Red Sox in a game that the Rangers ended up winning. And thanks to Game Time, we were able to save money on those tickets so we could splurge a little bit more at the game itself. Game Time is the official ticketing partner of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports and makes getting tickets to any event faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer you get to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee on any ticket to any event, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Go watch the Washington Nationals play all season long at beautiful Nationals Park to take in the beauty of the game while not breaking the bank on great seats. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time today. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS. That's one word, all caps, CHATSPORTS, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHATSPORTS. That's CHATSPORTS down there in the comments section. CHATSPORTS, one word, all caps, for $20 off that first purchase. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. The next guy on my list here, guys, is somebody that I actually think has a pretty darn good chance of being taken in round one, so get your popcorn ready. It's Nick Emmanwori, the safety out of South Carolina. Now, the physical profile, I think, is what Joe Witt Jr. and Dan Quinn really look for in their strong safety, all right? I think on paper, Emmanwori appears to be the perfect replacement from a physical standpoint when it comes to replacing Jeremy Chinn, who left the Commanders this offseason for the Las Vegas Raiders. in NFL free agency. You take a look at Jeremy Chinn's profile, his relative athletic score. He had a perfect 10 out of 10 coming out of Southern Illinois. Ran a 4.45 at his size at 221 pounds. I mean, this guy obviously is an absolute freak, which is why the Commanders ended up signing him last year in free agency and started him as their starting strong safety. And then Nick Emimori, I mean, you look at his relative athletic score. I mean, it's like two peas in a pod here. You got 10 perfect 10 out of 10s here, talking about the physical profiles. And Emimori was even faster than Jeremy Chinn was, running at 4.38 at 220 pounds. So Emimori is an absolute combine freak. We kind of knew that when he went into it, but he even exceeded those expectations. So he is an absolute physical specimen. But I have two issues specifically with the Commanders pursuing him, especially in round one without trading down. Number one, he's still pretty raw on tape, and I think that the Commanders need somebody that's more ready to play right now. I think Emimori is somebody that needs a little bit of time to develop, and you don't want to put too much on his plate right away, especially if you're going to be moving him from free safety, where he played most of his college snaps, to strong safety, which is what the Commanders would be asking him to do in year one. I still think that despite his size and despite his athleticism and explosiveness and speed, I think that he's still pretty raw, and I think he's still pretty unproven in some of the key kind of abilities you have to show off as a true strong safety that plays in the box all the time. I don't think he does a great job taking on blocks. I actually know his run diagnostics are super slow, and it gives up extra yards because of that. I think that he's more suited to play nickel corner or free safety right away in the National Football League, which is not what the Washington Commanders would be asking him to do. They'd be asking him to do what Jeremy Chinn did, and that was to play in the box. That was to be almost like a hybrid linebacker. And in my opinion, Nick Emimori's film does not show a player that's ready for that type of role. So I would want somebody that's ready to play right away, because you look at the safety room right now. You got Quan Martin, who is a bona fide starter at free safety for you, and then you ended up signing Will Harris in free agency, who isn't exactly a true strong safety. He's more of a nickel kind of chess piece type of player that you move around. So that tells me that the Commanders want to get a starting level player at strong safety in the NFL draft. And the good news is there's plenty of good strong safety options that I think have a chance to be able to play day one as the starting strong safety for the Washington Commanders if they end up taking him on day 2 or day 3. Take a look at some of my favorite names. I think Xavier Watts would be a perfect fit for what the Washington Commanders want to do. Same thing with Kevin Winston Jr. out of Penn State. Sebastian Castro doesn't have the best physical profile, but he's very smart. I think that I would trust him on the field day one for the Washington Commanders. Same thing with Lathan Ransom out of Ohio State. And then I really like Jonas Sanker out of Virginia. Super versatile type of player. Great run defender. Can be your starting strong safety right away. And then Jalen Reed, another safety out of Penn State. Kind of a bigger body, over 210 pounds, that I think could play strong safety for you if you asked him to do it right away. So before we get into my final crash out candidate here for the Washington Commanders in round one, spam that thumbs up icon if for more Commanders draft content all throughout the draft season. We got 2 weeks left to go here on this channel before the big day in Green Bay. So click that thumbs up icon if you want more draft content in the days leading up to the NFL draft. Then my final player here, where I would not be very happy if the Washington Commanders ended up taking this player at number 29, but it is somebody that's kind of being projected towards the end of the first round, and there are some whispers that the Commanders might be looking to upgrade from Brian Robinson Jr. as their number one running back. And the player I'm going to be talking about here is Travion Henderson, where some people I really respect, like Benjamin Albright, for example, he says he would be shocked if Henderson doesn't go in round one this year. All right, and I think that Washington, in my personal opinion, even if they want to upgrade the running back position, they shouldn't address that position in round one, because this offense revolves around Jaden Daniels, plain and simply. All right, like, you don't need a star level running back here in Washington, because you have a star level quarterback that is the center of the offense. Being okay at running back is perfectly fine with me. All right, Brian Robinson Jr. is perfectly serviceable as a starting running back, and when you pair him up with Austin Eckler, he's pretty darn good. All right, he is somebody that I think, he's still got some decent explosiveness. He's certainly lost a step from the days where he was a star running back, but I think that running back duo is perfectly fine, and I like Chris Rodriguez Jr. and Jerry McNichols as your backup options in the running back room. And honestly, Washington doesn't need a star running back. Like I said, man, you got Jaden Daniels, you've got Debo, and you got Terry McLaurin, and you're probably going to add another receiver at some point during the draft. Like, the star of this offense is the quarterback, Jaden Daniels, who can beat you with his arm and can beat you with his legs. And because you have that great extension of the run game, I don't think you necessarily need to invest a first-round pick on a type of running back prospect here in TreVeyon Henderson. And, I think that he's the type of guy that has a lot of hype around him right now, and he has a lot of star upside. He has incredible explosiveness, all right? Like, his ability to get to top speed, the acceleration is world-class, and he's got great long speed to hit home runs. But in my opinion, the contact balance isn't all that great, so he doesn't break a lot of tackles, and then he doesn't have great vision. So, there's multiple times on that Ohio State film where I'm watching Henderson play, and it's like, well, if you go down this lane right here, buddy, it's a touchdown. Instead, he goes right into, an oncoming defender, and it's just super frustrating to watch because he leaves so many yards on the field. So even though his upside is through the roof, I don't think he's a slam dunk. And I think if you're taking a running back in round one, he's got to be a slam dunk prospect like Ashton Genty or Amarian Hampton, for example. I don't see that in TreVeyon Henderson. At least not on his Ohio State film. He certainly has a ton of upside. But as we talked about, I don't think the Commanders need to make this investment in a quote-unquote star running back on day one because Jaden Daniels helps out their run game. And, of course, the star of the show is the passing game. All right? So I think that if you want to get a running back, that's perfectly fine. Austin Eckler is getting a little bit older. All right? If you want to get somebody for the future to replace his role as the number 2 running back or maybe even the future number 1 running back, I think you can get a guy on day 3 that I really like. So you take a look at the day 3 running backs that I personally like for the Washington Commanders this year. And by the way, all the numbers that you see on screen is where these players rank on the consensus big board. So this is compiling up all the biggest big boards, ESPN, PFF, all the different big boards that are out there, and they average them to see where these players line up. So RJ Harvey out of UCF is currently ranked 121st. I think he has a chance to be a star running back in this league, and right now the consensus big board says you can get him in round 4. Damian Martinez, somebody I love watching on film. He's a complete bruiser with a little bit of speed. Really like him as well. Bashal Tutin, the guy that ran the fastest 40 time of any running back in this year's class. He's got a little bit of a fumble issue, but he's extremely explosive. Devin Neal has some of the best instincts out of anybody in this class, his ability to know where his blockers are and use space effectively. He's not the most athletically gifted, but he's a damn good football player. Jaden Blue, really, really fast scat back, receiving back type. Same thing with Trevor Etienne out of Georgia. I really like Jarquez Hunter out of Auburn, a really, really explosive player. And then Lan Larison is somebody to keep your eye on out of UC Davis, currently ranked 468th on the consensus big board, but this guy can play. Just look him up on YouTube if you haven't already, man. This guy's highlights is something to behold. Obviously a lower level of competition, but I think he's got the athleticism to play in the National Football League and the playmaking chops to be a potential steal in this year's class. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which day 3 running back would you like to see the Washington Commanders take this year? For me personally, if you can get RJ Harvey or if you can get Jaden Blue or Devin Neal, any of the guys that I had on my list, guys, I would be thrilled to get on day 3. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments section. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report. Make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already because we've got more Commanders content coming your way as we gear up for the 2025 NFL Draft.